very tumultuous year, to say the least, for these students. And I'm very, very pleased that we have 3 people here that are going to discuss that with you. We have Luis Coloca from CWI, who's going to be presenting, Thomas Puka from CWI as well, and Brandy Harris. She is, I'm going to let her introduce herself. She's a law student with Concordia University and also connected with the Community Council of Idaho. So I'm very excited for all these people. And Luis, I'm going to let you take it away. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. Yeah, that's a lot better, right? Robbie's a fun way to go. So, yes, thank you, everybody, for coming. Appreciate PNACAC for having us to talk about this topic today. We're going to talk about a few different things before we get started with the panel in the second phase of the presentation. And I'm going to actually get this part of this mic over to Brandy, because she will be talking quite a bit to offer a legal perspective on some of the things that we'll be talking about today. And as we were going through this presentation, I'm like, wow, I did not know that. I'm like, the counselors are going to love this. It's like, these are the things that they want to know. So I'm really hoping that everybody gets at least a little something out of this. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask them as we're going through some of the slides. And also remember that as we go through that panel, you'll also have the opportunity to ask perhaps some more really in-depth questions and get not only perspective from someone that works in higher ed, and Ronnie's also going to be part of the panel. For the high school perspective, we'll have a student with us as well, and that'll talk about her perspective going through high school and then on into college and our two-year institution and the four-year institution, right? And that what that may have looked like given her experience as a student. So yeah, we're really looking forward to this. All right. So first off, I really want to kind of mention, because we do still get people that are confused about, what might be the difference between like a undocumented student, right, a DACA student, and a refugee, maybe even / international student. Right? So you're going to find that at least for all of them, they all have different challenges that they face, right? And all their situations are going to be a little different. For an undocumented student, in many instances, right, they're the ones that there's no documentation that they're here. Right? They're going to have, and we'll show you some pictures of what a foreign identification might look like for our international students, students that are here on a student visa, refugees, displaced students in a sense, right? I mean, they're here, this is not where they typically live, they've come from elsewhere, they've flown, they've fled, right? They fled their country, and they're coming to us with no documentation. In many instances, sometimes a struggle to get a hold of that high school transcript, because if they send somebody looking for it, that person might be in danger. So it's just, there's a lot of fear really with all these different student populations for a number of different reasons. Okay, so one thing about undocumented students, and this is probably the thing that's most disheartening, that we still see in many situations that undocumented students are told that they cannot pursue a higher education. Right? So there's nothing that prevents that. So anytime that I hear that, I'm just like, oh man, I really wish that the people were better informed. And more than anything, that's probably what I want to emphasize for this particular student group. Yes, there are challenges, but there's nothing that prevents them from going on into an institution of higher ed, whether that be College of Western Idaho, Boise State, right, or College of Idaho. So more than anything, just kind of know that, right? If someone comes to you with that desire and they're undocumented, right, there are ways around that. It's going to be an uphill battle, but we can get them through. For refugee students, for them it's I think a little easier. Sometimes, as mentioned, it's a bit more difficult to get their documentation, right? But there's a pathway for them, right? Even though we require all this documentation and some hoops to jump through, there's financial aid assistance for them, and we'll talk about that more in depth as we go through. DACA students, I would say, probably right now are the ones that are most influx, given everything that's occurred over the last few weeks, months. And Randy can speak to something that you and I were talking about in terms of application numbers. So you might share a little bit about that in terms of DACA.
So with DACA right now, there's with the most recent court ruling where they had to start taking renewal applications again, what we're finding is that judge that ordered the renewal applications to be reinstated also ordered the quarterly report to be written by the CIS. On the most recent quarterly report, what they found is about 60% of the people whose DACA are going to expire this month, in May and in June, haven't reapplied. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fear around DACA right now.
Yeah, so that for me was significant. So, as mentioned, when we were going through this presentation, when she shared that with me, I'm like, wow, that's huge. That really does mean, right, that people were afraid that if they reapply, that means that the government's going to have a way to find them. And as her and I were talking more in depth, some of the things that she was sharing with me was that given that she works directly with a lot of these students to help them go through the application process, right, they would use family members' addresses, they would use just like, they did not want to reveal where they live. And any ideas why that might be? Deportation is one, but deportation for who? Right, their parents. Their parents, because in many instances, their parents are probably undocumented, right? And they don't want to, experience that. They don't want their parents to be sent off somewhere. So it's just something I always got to keep in mind, right? That that the fear is very real, and I think for most of you, right?
So I wanted to just interject. So another case that hasn't really gotten a lot of media attention is Precedent Maryland versus the Department of Homeland Security. In that case, the judge ordered a preliminary injunction that said that USCIS cannot use DACA information for deportation purposes. So I hope that you guys can share that information now that injunction is currently in place. So anybody who does submit their DACA renewals and hopefully initial applications that might get to start again in 90 days, that information is prohibited by a court order from being shared for deportation purposes.
That's one of those things I'm like, the counselors would love to know that. So at least in terms of my perspective, really where I come into this situation, the CWI in many instances has to do with residency and determining residency for students. Let's see, here we go. Right, so this I think is probably very relevant to you all as counselors, something that's changed within the last year here in Idaho. What makes a student a non-resident student, right? What's that definition? So I pulled this from the state board website that talks a little bit about a few different categories. Right? So really, if you're not an Idaho resident, if you are that second category there is more for our students that are here as international students, perhaps students that are being funded by, like we still have a significant Saudi population that we're receiving funding from the Saudi government to attend classes here in Idaho or another institution nationwide. So that those students are not residents. And then that last category there on the right-hand side, right? This is really that key category that has made it possible for DACA students to be considered in-state residents. This particular definition used to say legal presence. Legal is different than lawful presence. So because it now says lawful, that means that it's a DACA student, we can't consider them as residents when it comes to tuition purposes. And all of the different categories that they can qualify for. Right? For any of you that have seen the paper, that common paper application for admissions, you saw all these on the back page, right? And maybe a few more. At least I can't necessarily speak to the other institutions of higher education, but I can say that at least a great majority of our high school students in particular qualified under secondary student, high school student, and especially now the state has made it very easy for us with the direct admissions application, right? That if we see that direct admissions application, we know that student's going to be an Idaho high school graduate, right? Which basically means they're in-state. And obviously we need to verify that with final high school transcript and perhaps a bit of other information, but for the most part, that usually means they're a resident. Now, when that situation is in doubt, we do have to go through a verification process, and this might be something that our student panelists decide to share a little more when we get into that phase of the presentation. But I really wanted to Brandy kind of talk about some of the things on the right-hand side. Right, you see that a student can have 5 of the following. I think there are a lot of misconceptions in this particular area of what a student that is either undocumented or DACA can or cannot obtain. So as we were going through this, I thought that she had a valuable perspective that she could share.
So a lot of people think that a person that's undocumented can't do a lot of those things, including owning a residence or registering or paying for taxes. With an I-10, which is a tax ID number, you can actually do pretty much all of those things. A lot of institutions use them kind of like social security numbers, even though they're only meant for tax purposes. Other institutions still use them. So you can lease a residence or lease a vehicle. You can pay taxes, which is what the purpose of the I-10 was for. You can't obviously register for both. But you can, maybe not an Idaho driver's license, but you can get a driver's license sometimes in other states. You can definitely get bank accounts. Well, and then you can rent houses, rent apartments, depending on the owner of that business.
So I might have missed something, but where does that I-10 come from?
So the government wants their money, obviously, and so whether somebody's here undocumented or not, they created a way through statute that allows people to pay taxes. So you can file taxes, whether you're self-employed or maybe you're using some other documentation. You file taxes initially with an I-10 application, and then sometime later, and some type of identification, that you can send your passport, or for people from Mexico, you can send your Mexico consular, and they'll give you the I-10 number. And then it's good for a set period of time, and then you have to renew it, and you have to do this process. But it's free. There's no cost for applying for an I-10. That one I'm not sure.
Yeah, one of the things about filling out the FAFSA, and we'll talk about that more in depth, but I think most people are aware that now that FSA ID, one of these steps involved in that process is a social security number verification, and an individual taxpayer identification number does not check out as a valid social security number.
And you'll see those numbers start in the 900s, and so that other systems will also take them out because they start in the 900s.
So you mentioned maybe not in Idaho. Does Idaho have a stricter policy? And then if not Idaho, we're close.
Are you talking about for getting a driver's license? Yes. So Washington and California allow driver's licenses for undocumented individuals. You have to have a certain number of documents to prove residency, which people do. Cousins there or family there, and they'll go get the driver's license and then they sit here.
But Idaho doesn't.
No, Idaho does not allow for that.
And just a visual reminder, right, of what that difference might mean of being an in-state versus an out-of-state resident when it comes to tuition purposes. So I can pull up our friends here at Boise State, so you can see that difference, and also the difference at CWI. So yeah, it's pretty much double, almost more than double in some instances. So really, anything that we can do to try to get that student in state residency, right, we'll do it if the documentation is there. And when it comes to, I really like to remind people that community colleges tend to have more flexibility when it comes to determining residency, really because the state level statute is different than it is for four-year institutions. So in many instances, it was nice with the law changes that DACA students can now qualify for in-state that are four-year institutions, but for an undocumented individual, that's still not the case. So for an undocumented individual, unless they have a lot of scholarship assistance in many instances, they're having to pay out of pocket. So in many of those instances, it might make sense for that individual to pursue an education at CWI, where we can perhaps consider them for in-state before they transition off to a four-year institution, if that's their desire. Private institutions can do whatever they want to, right? So that would also be a good fit. I do know for a fact, like, for instance, at College of Idaho, a couple of individuals that did obtain $100,000 scholarships, so it's $25,000 a year, and that made it a reality for them to be able to attend a College of Idaho. So just, there's different avenue for every student, and really more than anything, that's one of the things that I'm hoping that you all get out of this, right, is that there are resources out there, and a lot of, in many instances, it has to do with getting that individual connected to, right, those of us that are aware of these things and are really, on the inside of what we can do for particular individuals. And seeing that, it's really nice to see, like Andrea Roscoe's here from Boise State, and we have Ramon Silva as well, to work with a lot of students, and see Greg here from College of Idaho as well. So, it's a matter of getting people connected. Right? So that's probably something I cannot emphasize enough, right? Make sure that the students connect with us. So this is really what a student, like, this is what I found out, right, as Randy and I are talking about this, that when people apply to the DACA program, right, technically the application is free. And what they're paying for, Randy told me, this is what they're paying for.
So what they're paying for is this employment authorization card. They don't actually need that to get deferred action, but what this card allows is, one, it allows them to work, but two, they can also apply for a social security number and an Idaho driver's license. Now, the Idaho driver's license is tied directly to this employment authorization card, so when this card expires, so does their driver's license. And that's what costs $495 every 2 years for them to renew.
And then I just wanted to pull this out for our refugee students, that their documentation might look a little different, though they might also have an employment authorization in the instances. Now, Randy, would you be able to share as well how this particular documentation, 994, might be changing here in the very near future?
I've seen the design 994s also as a stamp and a passport, so you might not always see the little cardboard piece of paper that's easily lost. You can also access the record on this through the CBP website. So CBP is the Customs and Border Patrol, and they have a website that with the passport number, you can actually look up this information.
And this is, Brandy mentioned this term earlier, the matricula consular. That's the foreign identification card, so some of you may have seen this. So the Mexican consulate here in Boise is able to issue this to students that are Mexican citizens. So this is something that we encourage all individuals so that they have some form of identification on them, so we can for them to obtain. In addition, we also do accept the Mexican passport as a formal form of identification on our campus. And seeing as we do have a few individuals from Boise State here, is that something that you accept as well? As a form of official ID? The matricula consular of the Mexican passport? Okay. Great. Okay. Thanks, Andrea. And this is probably the most important portion, right, when it comes to these students pursuing a higher education. What type of financial assistance might there be available? So DACA students are not eligible for federal financial aid. And you'll find that in some states they are eligible for maybe even state aid, never federal aid, but perhaps state aid. We do have an individual that works for CWI who came over from Washington State as an example. And Washington State University does have funding specifically for students that are DACA or perhaps undocumented. Now, here in the state of Idaho, right, that's not the case. In really many instances, we're having to rely on private funding and scholarship funding. But refugees are, right, refugees, individuals that are here on certain types of visas, and perhaps they fled their country because of violence. That's something to be aware of. Now, in terms of determining financial need for these students, I don't see anyone from Boise State's financial aid office here, but I do know that in many instances, the Boise State financial aid office will do a hand calculation, is what they call it. That's typically when you're filling out the FAFSA, you're filling out the FAFSA so that you can attain an EFC, right, that expected family contribution. So all of our data is written in the FAFSA. Now, for those students that are not eligible to fill it out, I know that the Boise State office, financial aid office, has collected the information on a piece of paper and then manually calculate that EFC. So we do something similar using our in-house financial impact calculator. So just kind of know that there are ways that we can establish financial need, outside of the formal FAFSA process.
What do you do once you establish that financial?
Then they're eligible for scholarships that require financial need. Right?
Even if it says, are you talking about undocumented versus, I mean, it says DACA, Idaho, not eligible for state aid.
Correct. Yeah, but that's state aid. That has, I'm referring in instances where perhaps a scholarship requires financial need, because there are a lot of scholarships, right? We have scholarships that are based on academic, scholarships that are based on financial need. So we still need to do our due diligence, verify that student has financial need. So we typically, in many instances, the way that the institution does that is through an EIC. But because these students can't really go through the entire FAFSA process, right, we come up with alternatives to figure out what that EIC might be. Yeah.
Information so they can have the NCL file. They could also submit a regular FAFSA using zeros of their social security. Obviously, the student will not be receiving any of the benefits, but the institution will receive the equation necessary to apply for the FAFSA and determine any financial need for certain scholarships.
That might be a follow-up question to you, I wonder. So I would wonder why we would need to do hand calculations considering that a student could do that. I guess I never thought to ask that question. So, I'll ask that question, and I'll let people know. Yeah, I suppose that makes sense, right? It's for the same reason they don't want to renew their DACA. Yeah. Yes.
I understand there's private scholarships, and you might administer those. But let's say at Boise State, where they have the True Blue Scholarship, or a gold level scholarship at Idaho, are those considered to be state aid or not in terms of what a student?
I'm also. So it's not stated. Yeah, it's purely based on need. And I hadn't figured as much. I think that most institutional scholarships, a lot of those come from private funding or types of funding. So that really it's not state aid, and it's not nearly as, the requirements aren't as stringent as if it was something that's coming directly from the state. Yes.
But I'm guessing that, like, say, the Idaho opportunity, the governors have those are all state.
Yes. And though let's see, I think it depends as well, because I know that in some instances, I have seen fast forward funding go to particular populations, so I think it depends on how the law was written in terms of whether or not that student is eligible for those types of funding. So very limited, but I have seen instances where those students are eligible. Yeah, see, I'll swing back with little credit to verify that. Thank you, Oscar.
Yeah, in some instances, in some instances, if the student sends the forecaster to the state level, they may qualify for some of these scholarships that are need-based. So, if you have any questions, we'll ask them and find out directly. Because I know there's some instances where students do qualify for presidential scholarships or the governor's scholarship, things like that. But they're DACA students.
Yes, sir. Yes.
As far as immigration status or anything else, negative.
Ready to go then? So the question was, what are the negatives of not reapplying for DACA?
Well, without DACA, you can't get a driver's license. So then you're back to driving around without a driver's license. And if you get pulled over, law enforcement has the discretion to either arrest you, which then could initiate contact with ICE to come and arrest you and deport you, or they can just give you a misdemeanor ticket, but either way, those rack up a lot of costs. And then also, if you don't have a valid social security number, and then you can't work, how are you supposed to pay if you're going to college mostly on scholarships, you still have to pay for some of it out of pocket. And if you can't legally work, then without an employment authorization, then that's another negative to not having backup.
So, and it was just a reminder again, right, that refugees are eligible for federal financial aid, and in instances they do have the documentation to be able to qualify for that. Though typically our financial aid office will require to verify this kind of stuff, so we do ask for, it could be the resident alien card, it could be that I-94, really just some sort of documentation that proves that student is here as a refugee. And then over to Tomas to talk about the next few slides. Scholarships.
When it comes down to scholarships, I visit schools the last 3 years. I have 5, 7 schools depending on the year that I visit directly with students. And the DACA students typically don't ask questions when we have a lot of them. So I have that discussion about scholarships, opportunity, and financial aid. And many of them get told, yeah, you qualify for financial aid because they have a social. And ultimately, I either catch them later on and find out, oh, well, you're not eligible for financial aid, and it's very discouraging. But my goal is to catch them way before March or February, because I want to be able to give them the guidance and some scholarships that they're eligible for. It's unfortunate when I catch them in July, because by then there's very little to be had. So scholarships, they do get confused. So if you guys have questions whether they qualify for that or not, most of the students are not going to disclose that they're DACA. All I know is they're very proud. I have residency, I have a social, and I can work. So that's one thing that keep in mind whenever you're working with our students. Again, the scholarship depends on eligibility requirements. You got to make sure to look through them. Most of the ones that are the nonprofit scholarships will immediately say it's for everyone, including DACA students. Very few have I seen that are for non-residents or undocumented, but it starts with DACA students. So there's quite a few of those out there. And our goal is to, on our website, our goal is to have, on our Latinx website, is to have those scholarships tied in within our financial aid office so students can access those and your students can access those. And if you guys have questions, which ones they are, we'll be more than happy to share that with you guys. I think it's really important. Getting them in early in the fall is when we want to have that information to our students, because it's really tedious scholarships whenever you're putting them together. Again, I state by state, it depends on which state you're in regarding which scholarship you have. So we're going to say a little bit about the national scholarships that we work with. We want to research all these to ensure that if a student's going to apply for a scholarship, they don't get asked for money. If you have to pay for a scholarship, definitely question that. If you have to pay for the scholarship, you probably run the wrong website. Here's a few that we posted out for national scholarships, and many of these we've seen the students basically apply for these scholarships. The Hispanic Scholarship Fund is one of the ones that goes back to when I had someone within my family that wasn't going to do it. And I told them, hey, if I do it, do I get a little cut off of that? And they're like, sure. So I helped them organize it, and write an essay, and I reviewed it, and they got a little bit of money off of that, and guess what? I didn't get my pick. So, but I like helping my students because I used to keep track on 12, 13, 14 students and do a tally on how much money they got. And as we put all these together, I was like, oh wow, we're $350,000, we're at $400,000. And that's what I want. I want to make it easier for our students to be able to then go on to college and get this opportunity, because it's already hard enough for most of us that are getting Pell Grant. Just imagine starting minus $5,900 and then trying to go to all these institutions where that's where their dreams are at. So, again, the Mexican American Legal Defense, Educators for Fair Considerations, these are all basically the scholarships that can be put on your website, and they're very credible. The local scholarships, again, we always get started really, really early, and there's Oscar Hernandez. He and I worked really hard in the valley to make sure all these scholarships are out on our students' hands. Many was like, do I have to go to your school? And I said, no. You can go pretty much anywhere for these scholarships. So if you're going to go U of I, let's do it. If you're going to go to Boise State, or we're going to go wherever you want to go, these scholarships are going to be applicable to whatever school you plan to attend. Many of them I ended up losing them to other schools, but I was very proud because at that point, if I lost them to those schools, if they got the biggest scholarships from Pell Grant all the way through was about $15,900 on one of my families. And they wanted to come to our school, College of Western Idaho, and they ended up coming to Boise State University. And then the other student got about $15,700, brother and sister, and they ended up where? Boise State University. So, but we're out in the community, really, we're working for the student. I'm working for the student. I'm a community college rep who basically my whole goal is to get you anywhere you need to go to. So if you get the money to go to Boise State, then great. If you get the money to come to our school, great. They decide, we help them. I go really, really early on in the year and start talking about these. Many of them don't have the application open, but I like to look back at the previous application so that they start writing their essays, because later on, early in the spring semester, they're so busy. They're really, really busy. 2 years ago, I had students in my office for 2 hours, 1 hour at a time, working on scholarships, working on essays, coming in at 5 o'clock and, hey, let's work from 5 to 6, and just reviewing essays, because to me it's really important that they are able to express themselves in the scholarships, because most of us don't want to talk about ourselves. So that's something we should do. So, and again, if you guys want to take a quick look at these, if not, you guys can email us and we'll quickly send you the information directly.
Stay there, kind of off and on, right? And so, I'm sure that you all do this, right? But I think it'd be good for me to hear it, especially all your high school counselors. How much do you emphasize for all these scholarship essays that your students write, that they have somebody else review it? Right? I see a lot of head nodding, right? They're like, yeah, but they don't do it. Right? I served on the Idaho Latino Scholarship Foundation board for about 3 years, and oh gosh, it was, and this is what I tell the students that I work with as well, that first cut, it was always the easiest, and usually that first cut was about 50%. They're going to have the essays because it was not a well-written essay, right? It's like random scattered thoughts, and even just a mess up between where the capital is supposed to be and no punctuation, a bunch of run-ons. Gosh, it's just like, I don't know if we can do enough work in terms of emphasizing how important and critical it is. So anyway, just a friendly reminder.
These are a few obstacles that our students face. Legal financial barriers is a big one. Many of them come to us in regards to, hey, I will have to renew my DAC application. And I've known people go to places where it's $1,500 or $1,000 or $850 just to fill out the simple application. And
I just want to make a quick plug. So, in addition to being a law student, I'm also the program director at the new Immigration Legal Services for Community Council of Idaho. And because of this expense and the uncertainty around DACA, I do DACA renewals for only $45. So if you have any DACA students, please send them my way. I am more than happy to help them.
that's the marketing. Because $800 is a lot, and then you have to pay your fees. I also have a few contacts in the community who have yelled at me for not sending them their way. It's like, I would have done it for them. So again, there's people out there that are willing to do it for a very low cost. And again, the application is not, I looked at it and kind of teach the students that, why don't you do it yourself? Like, I don't trust myself, because they threaten me that if I do it wrong, I don't get it right. So, but yeah, so yeah, we have someone that can basically help you guys out. Family environment work, we found our students are working to put themselves through school, working a lot. Sometimes they have to wait a semester to build momentum again and build their piggy bank so they can go on to college. So, but we see them a lot at our community college, and then we move more to wherever college or university we can be at. So that's something that we're doing. Lab county, understanding and support. Most of us, we're out there and they're like, hey, you graduated, time to get a job. And sometimes we live with our parents, and that's what we do. It's always an opportunity for us to again save some money so we can go on to college. And of course, knowing their proficiency. And many instances, I had a student the other day come in to a financial aid night, and they were a refugee, and they were excited when I told them, guess what, you qualify for financial aid? Like, I do? Like, yeah. And so I walked them all the way through until he was done. And he saw how much he was getting. He's like, I can go to college. It was very exciting. He drove from Boise to Canyon County in Nampa. I said, how did you find this here? Like, I knew you guys were doing financial aid, so I'm here. So he stayed there and finished up, and he's going to college next fall. So I was excited about that. So those are the students we're serving and making sure we give them all the access to the system. So what can you do? Of course, you did inform them for action. Yes.
Where is it on this one? Yes.
So this, and also just so you know, this will be available on the PNACAC website as well. So maybe we could just add a slide with Randy of yours and have it on there.
Wonderful. And you guys are pretty much, if you're here, you're already doing a lot of this now, connecting with other people, passing on accurate information. If you don't know it, it's always good to contact another college rep. Talk among ourselves, because I see a lot of students who don't apply for financial aid who are born here, but they don't do it because their parents are not legal. So, and then talking to them about what to put in the financial aid, well, the fact that the parents can't sign it online, that's one thing, and then what to put in the social security numbers, don't put the tax identification number, and put zeros, things like that, where we can then are able to give the right information for students so they can get their financial aid and move on to go on to college. So everything that's up here, you guys are already doing. So appreciate you guys wanting to get all that information, but whatever questions you have in regards to this, you can always contact each other, and maybe we can communicate and ensure we're passing on the right information. The current status of DACA.
So, as I mentioned earlier, there was a court case, it's been a couple months, where, well, as you guys know, DACA was canceled by the Trump administration in September 5th. Well, when they did that, they failed to follow the normal procedures for canceling a benefit that people rely on. And so since that date, the cancellation has been challenged in the courts. Fortunately, a Ninth Circuit judge decided that the administration's determination that DACA was illegal was improper, because that's the job of the judiciary and not of the executive branch. And so therefore, he reinstated the DACA renewals. So that's been great. But then, just last week, we have another judge who also said that he didn't understand why they were saying that the program was illegal. And he gave, as I mentioned, the Trump administration 90 days to prove that DACA is illegal. And if they can't, which I don't feel that they'll be able to, then they'll be willing to do DACA initial applications again. So right now, the only people that can submit applications are the people who already have DACA. Even if it's expired, as long as it hasn't been expired for more than a year, they can still submit their renewals. And some people are submitting their renewals in advance. So it used to be you couldn't reapply until 90 days before the expiration of your DACA. You can reapply at any point now. The only difference is that you'll end up with less time on the back end But with the way the program is right now, sometimes that might be a benefit just to make sure that you continue to have it. Because it would, even if they are able to cancel the program outright, you would still have your DACA until its expiration. So we have 90 days to find out what the courts are going to do. Of course, all of these things are being challenged by the government, all of these decisions. And it's probably going to be in the fall when these cases go to the Supreme Court. And then we'll know for sure whether or not DACA is illegal. But it's looking like, with all the courts, that DACA is not illegal. They said DACA, the other version of it would be made to help the parents of DACA students. In a Texas court decision, that court said that one was illegal, but that was because it provided a benefit to the parents of these undocumented students, which wasn't something that Congress allowed. There's already a path for parents of these students to be legalized, and by providing the DACA, it was kind of a workaround, and the judiciary didn't like that. But in DACA, there's always been deferred action. There's always been something available that the government can provide. It's been discretionary. It's never been applied so broadly as it is with the DACA program, but it's in statute. There is a law for it that allows for it. So, you guys have any questions about DACA?
So going to that point, the idea then of deferred action, is that based upon that was in the law prior to the Obama administration developing this? Was that deferred action based on employment or what?
No, it's discretionary. So the government looks at various factors, whether it's in the interest of the nation or for family unity. The government is able to determine whether or not, in their discretion, they can defer any type of removal action against that person. But usually it's applied individually, but in this case, the Obama administration applied it broadly.
Thank you.
In Arizona.
We have a request to use the mic for questions.
Didn't Arizona just recently say that DACA students actually are treated as will pay out-of-state tuition? Did I hear that correctly?
As from what I understand,
Just like last week or a couple weeks
I
ago.
read on that case briefly, but that was an Arizona decision. But other states do that as well.
Yeah, my fear on all these things is that, what is Idaho going to, that seems like something that Idaho would do, or, if that's an option or whatever, sorry, that's getting some people.
Idaho won't do that.
Do you see anything like New Jersey or
So the question is, do we see anything like New Jersey where we might see extra funds for DACA students? And where do the funds come from? Yeah, I don't know if I know that either. That could be state funding, like Washington, right? Washington has state funding, and if that money's coming from the state, that's based on some action by the state legislature. I don't really see that happening in Idaho either. Any other questions before we move on?
So a little bit of what we do on our campus, just to share what we're doing as a resource for students that may qualify for some assistance. The ones who have the Presidential Ambassador Scholarships, the students can qualify for that. That usually in our school will open in June. I'm hoping to open it a little earlier. So our students can qualify for that. Now they have no mentoring scholarships. This is the first year we started a mentoring program through Latinx coordinators on our campus. We began this training in the spring. We're hoping that our students are ready to be mentors in the fall of this upcoming year to all our new incoming students. We see that we're making the efforts to bring our students to our campus, but what are we doing for retention? So we're focusing not just on recruitment, but retention. And that's something that we just started this year. This is the first year we're having mentors going. The dual credit scholarship, again, our students qualify for that. So upon them graduating, they can apply for that. And today, the deadline for this scholarship, unless they keep it open, but I believe today's the deadline. So it's $1,000 scholarship that students can qualify. Conservative Talent Scholarship Fund, this is a scholarship where we get matching funds from the Mexican consulate, so the students' parents as a residency or as Mexican descent, then we're able to offer that opportunity to someone who can prove that they're from families from Mexico. The student hourly work for DACA students is also there, resource for our students. Free transit, no admissions process for no admissions application for students, and in-state tuition at this time. Hopefully that won't change.
So another thing too, this is that slide that you saw earlier is a small representation, right, of the different things that all the college campuses are doing. Because, I'm sure if we were going to have Boise State up here, we could talk about some of the things that Francisco is doing, the Multicultural Center, the Casita de Pantla, and all these other opportunities that the student has on campus. So again, really, I don't think I can emphasize enough, right, how important it is, even more so for these individuals, to get them connected with that college representative. And then we can be that middle ground person, right, the liaison that's going to help connect them to other parts of the college community, that's going to help get them through, not just when it comes to anything that might be a scholarship or some sort of employment opportunity on campus, but also that student support system that's probably going to be the most important.
So most of you see our campus, these are the different opportunities that we have around the CWA bilingual events. We have a one-on-one meeting with the Latinx counselors, making sure that we welcome our students. We have FAFSA nights in Spanish. We had 3 and 3 in the fall and the spring. We have parent and student orientation. That's something that's going to be we're putting together. Student graduation that we had this last Friday. It was an amazing event for our students and the parents. Some of these students started their education years ago, and now they're graduating. Their parents are there, and we had 21 students there, and 23 had RSVP, so that's pretty good. With families, we were kind of excited for one family, about 15 family members. We built a lot of students and the parents, and very emotional event for our students. We're hoping that next year, already asked police about how much money is going to give us for the next event. So we'll have a bigger room, at least 50 people, and have them there as a celebration of the hard work and dedication that our students have had to endure. We have another elementary program, which I discussed. Manager monthly socials, they set it up. Semana Cultural Workshops, it's a week-long cultural workshop. So if you guys is there any high school counselors here, maybe you are invited for that, let me know. You can bring your students to see some of the really great events that we put together for that week-long event, and we're finishing it with a big fiesta at the end. Dia de los Muertos, we are involved there with that. Semestre Café con Leche, each at the end of the semester, coffee and some sweet bread, breads that raise up for our students, right? Make sure that we're there, they can make mostly for the sweet bread. Most of these students don't drink a lot of coffee, but we do. So, and we visit our high schools with the highest population. We had last year I had 7, this year I went to 5, because I was the only Latinx coordinator the prior year, and this year we have 3 of us, so I'm one of 3. So we're out there making sure again that our students that want to have a one-on-one chat, whether the DACA students, continuing students, we're serving them all from the beginning all the way to the end to graduating and celebrating their graduation. So I was really excited to see 80% of those students were the ones that I talked to from the beginning to the end. And I want to give a really quick props to Oscar Hernandez. I was 2 years ago when we started the Latinx initiative, and between him and my colleague Melissa, we're out there working hard to ensure that our student population, we were 18%, right? And so, again, it was not just my doing, it was our hard work and dedication to what we do. So, again, I think.
Again, very briefly, this is some of the things that we do, but I really like to think that every college campus does things differently and does other things. So you would be aware that for many years, there were people in the community that I thought I was a College of Idaho graduate because I was so involved. At the time, it was called the Albertson Latino Americano Students, the ALAS organization. I was actually their vice president, even though I was a Boise State student. So it goes to show, right, like, they even drew me in, and I wasn't even on their campus. So we all do things differently, ways the students can get involved. So just make sure that they are connecting with us. So I believe now it's time for a little break, right? And while you all are getting your coffee and donuts, we'll update the slide with contact information, and then we'll get started with phase 2. Right, yes. So when will seniors be able to view the financial aid package if they're headed to CWI? Let me verify that during our break, but I thought we were actually packaging like now if they have a complete file, so I will find out.
Okay. So please go ahead, Brandy.
Okay, so so DACA was the result of, during President Obama's administration, they worked really hard to try to pass what's called a DREAM Act, which would be a statute that allowed for some type of legalization for children who were brought here illegally by their parents. So those children had no say as to whether or not they wanted to come here illegally. And so they were in a predicament where some of them were here since they were 6 months old. And for all intents and purposes, the United States is their country. That's all they've ever known. They've never been to their native country. They don't know anything about it. Some of them don't even speak their native language. Unfortunately, the DREAM Act wasn't passed. And so Obama, knowing that there was this deferred action in the statute, he, in 2012, created the DACA program through executive order. So in order to be eligible for DACA, it's actually a pretty intense process. Not just everybody can be eligible. You had to have been 15 and under 31 as of June 15th of 2012. You had to be under 16 when you came to the U.S. You had to be living in the U.S. continuously since June 15 of 2007. You had to have been physically present in the U.S. since June 15, 2012, when this program started. You also had to have been in school or graduated, or if you were able to get into the military, honorably discharged. You can't have felony convictions or 3 or more misdemeanors, and you can't be a threat to national security or public safety. So that's a lot of stuff, because to be continuously present, you have to prove that you're here every single day. Well, if you're 5 years old and you haven't even started kindergarten, how do you prove that? And so they have to go through a pretty intense process of trying to get evidence, pictures, affidavits from family and friends, maybe their baptism certificates, anything to prove that they were actually physically present in the U.S. since that date. Any questions about DACA? Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm going to run around with the mic so that people on cam can hear what's going on.
How many different countries, different nationalities are represented by DACA students?
I don't have statistics, but I know that a lot of people think that only Mexicans get DACA, and that's not true. There are a lot of people who were brought here, maybe they were brought here legally, like via a tourist visa or something like that, and they overstayed their visa. And so then they are here unlawfully, and they've been unlawfully sent, meeting all this criteria, and so then they would be able to get DACA as well.
And this might be a very silly question, but we're all in this room to ask silly questions. Is there currently a citizen track for DACA students?
No, the only way to get citizenship is, well, first you get a green card, then you get citizenship, is either through marriage, or for these students, since they once they turn 18, they start what's called unlawful presence. They start accruing unlawful presence, where every day that they're here without illegally, it counts against them. And once they've been here for more than a year, then they're barred from coming back if they leave for 10 years. And so you have to either marry a citizen or have some type of a family member who has documentation who's able to petition for you.
Any other questions about that? No?
How long is the process to get citizenship when you're eligible for it?
So the question is, how long is the process for citizenship once you're eligible for it?
So you can't jump from nothing to citizen. You have to jump from, well, unless you're in the military. So there is a way, if you are able to join the military, the one day after joining the military, as long as you report like you're supposed to, there is a fast track to citizenship, but that's a whole other thing. But normally the process is you obtain a green card, and then once you obtain the green card, depending on how you get it, if you get it through marriage, like you marry a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, a U.S. citizen, then you can apply to be a citizen after 3 years. But if you get it through any other family member, then it's 5 years. You have to have your green card for 5 years, and you have to prove that you were continuously present in the U.S. for 2.5 of those years. So people who go to their native country once they get their green card and they're gone, on many trips visiting family members they might not have seen for years, that ends up counting against them when they're trying to become a citizen. Now, as far as the process, it just depends. So if a green card holder is applying for his spouse, that's a little bit longer than a U.S. citizen applying for his spouse. So there's levels of priority, and if you are anything less than an immediate relative of the U.S. citizen, you have to wait until your priority date comes up before you're eligible for a visa.
What's the percentage maybe that you'll find in high schools or middle schools as far as students who are exactly eligible for students who are not?
I'm sorry, but I don't have those kinds of statistics. So maybe Luis.
I don't think any of us do.
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
have phone calls, and I know there's a lot, but we don't keep that, or we don't document that kind of information.
I'm sorry. I should know the answer to that. I could have sworn that I had seen that number somewhere, and I can't recall it off the top of my head. It was when I was doing some research. I put together a white paper for some of the things that we're doing on campus for that next initiative, and I know I came across that. But gosh, I'm sorry, I honestly can't recall. But it was in that same research that I found out that only 50% of Hispanics in Kenyon County between the ages of 24 and 36 had a high school education. So, yeah, maybe those are some of the students that we're talking about. Just didn't really feel like it was worth it to go on. Yeah, yes.
You know that here in the state of Idaho, there's about 3,100 students that have received that in the state of Idaho. And one of the things that I mentioned a little bit earlier is, so I traveled to the Magic Valley to meet with prospective students and families, and every single high school that I walk into, and I introduce myself as the coordinator for multicultural recruitment, and I break it down who are the students I'm serving. Usually after the presentation, there's 1 or 2 students that will come up to me and say, I'm undocumented, I'm DACA, what are the resources, or what are the steps to get into college? And so I think that's also very helpful when you introduce, like, college recruiters to introduce yourself and say, we're here to help these groups of students, and then have them self-identify. More often than not they do, but about 3,100 here in the state of Idaho.
Luis, do you want to introduce our one panelist that hasn't been introduced?
Oh, yes. Yeah, sorry.
Hi everyone, my name's Paula Salas. I am a student at Boise State University and graduated from CWI just last spring. And I am also under the DACA program. Oh, and I went to high school at Bora High School.
I did overhear someone in the back as on the day I was sharing at your experience that somebody said they trust you? Right? It's like, maybe, especially you being part of the panel of it, perhaps that's something that you can speak to as a high school student in particular, maybe as you were transitioning on to college, right? What role does trust have in disclosing that status, and what is it that the counselors can do to be able to encourage students to be able to disclose that information where perhaps they have the fear that it might lead to a negative consequence?
Well, I graduated in 2004 high school, and back then I was undocumented, and I knew I was going to have a lot of obstacles going to college. So I did go to our career lady there, and I told her I'm undocumented, and she told me that it would be very hard for me to get into a university. But at the time, I was able to get into TVCC out in Caldwell, and I was able to get in there under a scholarship, and they paid my first year there. But it was hard because I had a lot of peers talking about how they were going to go to Boise State and other colleges, and I knew that I wasn't going to. It was going to be very hard for me. And going to her and telling her I was undocumented, I was really scared. I was scared that she was going to judge me or not help me. But thankfully she did, and I had other friends that were also undocumented, and so we all went, and in the end we all did go to TVCC where they helped us.
So I'm trying to think how to phrase this. What do you think what can the counselors do to be more proactive for students in your situation? Think back to what would have made a difference. So you said that you and a group of friends, right? That you got the courage to do that and let your counselor know what your status was and what your intentions were. What do you think that the counselor can do so that students, maybe they're the ones that are going to the students and putting that in front of them, or they're the ones that are encouraging students that, hey, if you're in this situation, right?
I think they could just talk to the students. From a young age, I was taught not to tell anyone about my immigration status. I learned that at the age of 10, that's when I found out I was undocumented. And my mother told me, you don't go around telling people that. So even through high school, I didn't really tell any of my friends unless they were undocumented like me. I think I told one of my friends, and that's only because she found out by accident. And then I told her, and she helped me too. But I think the counselors can just somehow slowly gain the students' trust and ask them. Like I said, at a young age, we're taught not to talk about immigration status for the fear of being deported. And I was brought here at the age of 2. This is my home. I've never been to Mexico. And so going to a country that I know nothing of, even though I have relatives there that I just talked to on the phone, I really don't know them. And so it's scary. It's scary to go somewhere new when America is your home and you have family and friends here and you know the language here. And yeah, it's just scary. And I think the counselors can, like I said, gain the students' trust so they can feel free and open to talk to them about their immigration status. Because it's really not that easy.
So when you found out at the age of 10, what did that mean? Did you know what that meant?
Well, I remember when I found out because I had a friend, we were on the school bus, I was at Jefferson Elementary at the time, and he told me that his uncle had gotten deported. And I looked at him, and I was like, what do you mean he got deported? He's like, oh, he didn't have papers. He went back to Mexico. I was like, oh. I got home, and I told my mom. I'm like, Mom, what does that mean? I don't get it. She sat me down, and she told me, we don't have papers. And I kept looking at her, I'm like, what do you mean? And then she told me, as you get older, you're not going to be able to get a driver's license. You'll probably be able to work, but it's going to be really, really hard, and it's going to be illegal. And you probably won't go to college. And I just looked at her, and I was like, I don't understand. And all she told me was, just don't tell anyone that you're undocumented. Because then that means we could get deported and go back to Mexico. And I knew I was from Mexico, I knew I was born there, but I didn't know that we had come here illegally until that day. And ever since that day, I just let my immigration status be closed. And whenever someone asked me, I would say, oh yeah, I'm from here. I have my papers because of the fear of being deported.
So, Tomas, you go to five high schools, right? And so Tomas is one of our Latinx Student Services coordinators. He goes out, he holds office hours at different high schools around the valley. Tell me about some of perhaps the language that you use, the words, right? How do you, given your experience, right? How do you speak to students so that they know that you understand the situation if that is something that affects them, that they are undocumented or DACA?
My approach is basically telling my story, where I come from. My family comes from Veracruz, and just letting them know that the education for everybody is really difficult. And I laid the foundations because we don't go out there and ask for residency. The students self-disclose. So we talk about financial aid, whether they qualify for financial aid or not. And if the students do not qualify, this is where it's at. If you don't qualify for financial aid, there's other resources. That's the pipeline for me opening the conversation with my students. Because once then we're done with the presentation, many of them that are DACA students or have no status at all, stay afterwards and talk to me one-on-one because they don't self-disclose in front of their peers. So, and then I follow it up and then begin that foundation of helping them out, filling out the other scholarships that are, most of them are private scholarships, private funds. So they are eligible, every student's eligible, whether they're residents, citizens, or DACA. When some of them are non-residents also. So that's how I laid the foundation. It's about trust. Tell them who I am. Once they know who I am, where I come from, and the difficult track that I've had for my own education, even with being a U.S. citizen, then it opens up the channels of communication between myself and the students and opens the trust.
Robbie, as a high school counselor that's there every day, could you talk to your experience working with students in this situation and perhaps how the experience, the changing climate has changed your philosophy and your approach in terms of how you help these students and encourage them to be open about how you can better assist them?
I wish there was a way, honestly, that we could have little pins or something to let people know, because the hardest thing I think is just getting those students to open up and to let me know, and I'm sure all of you who are high school counselors have experienced that you know they're out there, but they're just so afraid to disclose. I think one of the things I was just thinking about when this whole process happens for me, and I think right now, realizing this year that the FAFSA came available October 1st, I think has helped, because now we talk about the FAFSA a whole lot earlier. We try and get the kids to get the FAFSA done a whole lot earlier, and I'm noticing students coming to me a whole lot earlier saying, I can't, or I don't know how, there's always little phrases that you hear from these students that give you the clue that either they're DACA or either that they might be U.S. citizens, but they're fearful because their parents are undocumented. There's just so many layers to that FAFSA for them, but I'm so grateful for that FAFSA being early because of that. I think there's still fear out there. And rightly so. Like I said, this year has just been very tumultuous for a lot of the students. But I think the most important thing is that we respect these students, that we let them know we're not going to go tell anybody. It's not our job to go to immigration or anybody else. And I think one of the things too that I've seen relief on a lot of students' faces when I say that about the college representatives, it's kind of like, okay, I told my counselor, now what about all these other people that are going to find out? And when they realize that the college representatives as well not immigration, are not somebody who's going to deport them, they feel a whole lot better too. So I appreciate all the help on the side of the college as well.
Follow-up question. When you're going out early in the senior year and you guys are making presentations to students, did you mention about DACA and undocumented in terms of the aspects of that and filling out the FAFSA and make yourself available? Or do you just not say anything? Because I know on one hand, it can make just students who have grown up in the U.S. feel uncomfortable, or and doesn't necessarily accomplish it. But I'm just interested in your perspective on that question.
It kind of depends on the situation. In some of the classrooms, I will say something, that there are options available for all students to do the FAFSA or to get financial aid. Many times though, honestly, and I guess I would love to hear from other counselors and from students as far as, sometimes it's really hard just to even introduce that and how we talk to the students. And many times as I do my presentation, it's once again after the presentation that the students will come up to me. But I think letting them know that there are opportunities available to them while I'm giving the presentation is probably the best thing that I've done.
Tomas, do you want to say something about that as well?
As mentioned, it really depends on who you're presenting. I have presentations for the migrant parents. I present to the high school. I present to large groups. So it really depends. And I try to use some really key words when it comes down to opening that conversation. When I go and talk to my migrant parents, I'm a little more open to it. If I'm working with a higher population of students that are basically more diverse, then I figure out a way to get that specific information out, but yet not alienate anybody. So again, it's just opening the conversation, that the fact that I have more information, and it's really simple. I mean, I've been doing this for quite some years, so it's easy for me to open up that conversation and make my students comfortable and have them come and talk to me afterwards, and then I follow up. And from that point forward, again, having the financial aid open up early is really important, because some of these students get confused. They say, you know what, I have social. I qualify for financial aid. And then I catch that on early and say, you know what, you actually don't, but these are your other options. And that's when we start building really case for other scholarships. So again, it really depends on who you're talking to. And again, it's really fun. It's really nice to catch them really, really early.
Going back to an earlier topic and the fact that many of us as professionals in secondary ed and higher ed would not disclose information. Brandy, I wonder if perhaps you can offer a little bit of a legal perspective, right? Maybe, perhaps, about disclosing information on students and what we can be forced to do and not forced to do by a court, a subpoena.
As far as I know, the only way that they can obtain that information from you is through a court order, or if your organization opens their records up. So if most of your organizations aren't going to open up their records for immigration purposes, and getting a subpoena for that information, I think, would actually be rather difficult.
I just wanted to mention that a student that I worked with quite a bit this year applied to a dozen very highly selective out-of-state schools and so forth and privates, and she's well above 4.0. And the only reason I knew that she was even at status, just like Robbie said, after one of the college reps was in my office and did his spiel for everybody else, I just overheard her tell him, and she would go right up to the college fair and tell different college reps her situation. But whenever there were probably 5 or 6 times we called financial aid offices from my office, and she had to go through the entire, there would be this big pause, we can't find your records, you don't have FAFSA, and then she would have to say, well, that's because I don't have a social security number. And just to see her go through that over and over, and it makes me wonder too, maybe the financial aid officer a little asterisk or something, but without disclosing too much, but I always felt she just had to kind of re-explain that to some stranger every single time we were curious or had a question about that. Maybe that's just the nature of the business, but I don't know if there was anything on the college side or particularly the financial aid offices that immediately some sort of flag or indication would come, like, yes, we know you don't have Social Security, so we're not going to ask you 5 other questions, or say, I can't find your records. That was a part of the big thing. It just seemed difficult to see her go through that every single time we just had a quick question, but maybe there's nothing that about that.
I might move on for some perspective on that. Given that I'm much more involved when it comes to the processing side of the house for admissions and financial aid at CWI. I'll tell you that at least we try to be very ambiguous in our system in terms of how those students are labeled or not labeled, right? Which really means that they're not in any way. You'll find that if we were to pull a student in that situation up in our system and they had applied for financial aid, there would actually be some flags on the system that say that we needed to verify citizenship status, right? But it doesn't necessarily say that that student does not have a status. It just has that verify citizenship status, they apply for aid. And similarly, when it comes to the demographics information, all just very ambiguous, right? And I don't know if perhaps some of the other institutions of higher ed, if that's also the case. I would say that things are a little different this year and last year now that we have the direct admissions application, or perhaps we have even less information than we've had in the past from students in that situation. I know that currently all of the institutions of higher ed are working with the state to revise that app, try to get more information. It's my understanding that today we do have some students that are unnecessarily flagged as international or perhaps some other status because of the limited information that we see from the state for students in that situation. Thanks.
I would also just add on to that for the college reps and the folks in the room, not so much a question but just kind of a statement, that look through the information you're collecting, especially about DACA students. When we started hearing the coming down the pipeline that DACA was going to be ended, and then we heard the kind of rumors that admissions offices were going to be potentially investigated at large institutions for if they had racial discrimination against white students based on their application processes. We did a major sweep to figure out, what was kind of happening within our admissions processes. It pulled up a few flags in, things we needed to change, immediately in order to ensure that our students would potentially be safe in that kind of situation. But with this current administration, I definitely encourage the admissions counselors in the room to review your processes for any reason, but also in this respect as well.
I know this is hosted by CWI, but my question is we're way over in Payette, and so a lot of the college reps that we have come in is just regular admission college reps, and then we will have migrant reps come in for the camp program and everything else. I guess my question is with other colleges, because I know there's other colleges here, is there somebody specifically that can come in as a college rep that can talk to specifically our DACA students and walk them through the financial aid questions? Because when we have a general rep come in and those students stay after, we ask those specific questions and we get the, I don't know, we'll get back to you. And then it's a long time after that, or we have a migrant rep come in and we ask, and it's still that same of, I don't know, I'll get back to you. And so that's our big thing is, and if you do know of a college rep that does that specifically, can I please have your information?
Okay, so I'm the college career advisor at Boise High. What I typically do is I reach out to the camp representatives for the institutions. Or I reach out to both, like for U of I reached out to Daisy and I reached out to Michelle. And so they both came down. And if I can get a camp representative to come with them, that way it's camp, multicultural, and general admissions. They typically try to have two, at least one out of the three. And it's typically the camp.
We don't want to have that talk to it, but you don't ever really talk about exactly the question, but there's just a lot of our population.
So camp reps don't talk about DACA.
They don't touch on it, but it's, our kids are mostly, it's like, if they're not like that or whatever, they get.
They get discouraged because then they hear that, well, you're not eligible for financial aid. And then they immediately just, okay, whatever, and they check out or they turn around and walk out and then they are told there's other opportunities for you, but nothing's ever really gone more into detail about what opportunities are available to them.
So that's perhaps some feedback for us as college representatives, right? That maybe we need to emphasize that more, talk a little bit more about even some of the resources that were given in the presentation.
I just wanted to make a comment about the reps that have come to Columbia because they've been awesome at our FAFSA nights and have been able to help the students, including Trio, Gloria. So I'm very grateful because the ones that have come to help us out have been very knowledgeable and very helpful.
Of the college reps that are here, I see TVCC, Boise State, CWI, U of I. I'm probably missing somebody.
College of Idaho.
Yeah, sorry, Nick. College of Idaho. Would you mind sharing who would be a person to contact? Like when a student comes to me at Capitol, I'm always referring to Tomas. It's like, get a hold of Tomas. He will help you out. If you guys wouldn't mind sharing right now for the public high school, well, for the high school counselors who you would visit with, if you feel comfortable.
So I'm reading the live chat right now to answer that question for the University of Idaho. It's Monse Starr, and then the person located in Boise is Daisy Aguilera.
Back there.
At the College of Idaho, we're very fortunate to have Don De La Paz and Arnold Hernandez, who both work on the student affairs side, but they're very knowledgeable in these areas. So they would be, in addition to your admission counselor, they would be the two main people to reach out to. They're very involved with HYS and things too.
I always joke that Arnold Hernandez is my padrino, my godfather. He's on my way back.
For us, I mean, we got Tomas, we got me. I transitioned to full credit, but I'm still willing to come out and help any student. I always have my flyers for scholarships, whatever they need. I have contact with Tomas and all the other LCCs, we have changed names of them, LSCCs. But we have a big team that helps with the Latino groups, and we're very open about our stories, and we are very. I just kind of tell them straight up, if you're undocumented, I have these options for you. I have flyers for you. I'll even sit down and help you do some scholarships. Very open is the best way to do it. And a lot of us at CWI are ready to go. We've got Elizabeth as well from financial aid. I mean, we have a big team that'll help us out.
Let's see what the Spirit's office. Yeah. Oscar does it all, by the way. If you need a weddings, quinceañeras,
State, and I do visit some specific high schools here in the Valley. If you have any questions, I'll definitely make sure to provide you a business card. Now here on campus, we also work very closely with the Boise State Latino Alumni Chapter to provide community members and community and families more information to support our DACA and Latino students, and then our student diversity inclusion resources facilities we also work with all of our students here on campus and out in the community.
Chase? Yeah.
From Boise State, we do find that a lot of the undocumented black students end up going to community colleges due to the cost. And they transfer in if you're at Boise State. At that point, if you're an active student, obviously you pay state rates. If you're undocumented, we do have a GEM scholarship that can help cover a good percentage of that out-of-state fee. And it's a 3.75, which we pay from a community college. But if you're a little off on that, a student who must transition as a junior, I would have to reach out to IMA about the scholarship.
Did you say 3.7?
3.75 from community college.
LCSC? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Monica Susan, I'm a from Lewis Park State College, and at the moment, I believe I would see the conflict with my doctorate and students. We do also have a Native American and minority student services on our campus as well, and they can sometimes help provide for services as well. So, but as now down here in Trench Valley, Valley, Idaho, I would definitely look at the comments as well.
And then I'm Chase Weinward as a recruiting coordinator. We're in a little bit of turnover. I'm hiring a new recruiter for Idaho, hopefully by the end of this week. Just to get a little bit more support on the Idaho side, I would be the go-to for DACA, just as far as, and my new recruiter will obviously have some better knowledge after this training for sure. I would also just say that our foundation is awesome at awarding for DACA students. That's been traditionally a great point of contact, and then I have the ability as we're kind of approaching the last part of the year to award $1,000 scholarships for specific students who are above a 2.5 GPA. So that's another resource. It's it's institutional aid rather than state aid or federal aid.
So it is heading in, and I'm sure that y'all have to get back to work sometime today, as do I and everyone else. Are there any other last minute questions before we adjourn?
Sorry, this isn't a question, but this was a comment made earlier about resources that can be used for students in finding scholarships. Maritza Rios from College of Southern Idaho had said a scholarship phone app that she uses is called Dreamers Roadmap, and it's for free, and it was actually created by a DACA student. And so this is where students can go to find some more awards.
That's awesome, thank you. Dreamers Roadmap was the app.
Are you good? You're good? Okay. So this is the conclusion of our DACA workshop. I want to thank all of you who were here. It shows absolute commitment to all of our students. And just to put in one last shameless plug, I want to encourage all of you to please look at PNACAC as an opportunity for you to connect. And please be watching your emails, be watching the website, because we will be doing more webinars, live streaming like this. That is one of our goals for PNACAC, is to get this information out to all of you. And I thank you very, very much for coming. I thank CWI, I thank Brandy, I forgot Paula. Thank you so very, very much. We appreciate all of you being here and all of the people who are online as well. Have a great day.